Adam Lallana, a big week in your life, a big moment. Tell us about the change you're making.
Yeah, obviously I'm leaving the football club at the end of the season. I announced it yesterday, but I've kind of probably known I've really known probably 4 weeks ago. I was having just regular contact with the manager and discussions throughout the season, really. My relationship's that close to him. We've continually been speaking about it, but I in the end came to the decision and obviously spoke to the club, Davey Weir, Paul Barber, and it just feels right.
4 years, it's surprising, isn't it? That time's gone really quick, but you've seen a lot of change throughout the football club, haven't you? You've really seen it grow and you've been a massive part of that.
I think, and I think that's what makes me, overriding feeling I've got a lot of fulfillment, I think, because I feel that the job that I came here to do, I feel like I've achieved it. Nothing to do with like personal accolades but just the football club improving as a whole. I feel like I've been a part of that and played a small part in that, and that gives me an awful lot of satisfaction. When I remember speaking to Jordan Henderson before I joined Brighton and saying, I'm going to Brighton, and he kind of was like, well, really, Brighton? Like, you're not going to wait to see what else is...
Yeah, because you made that decision quite early, didn't you?
Very early. I wanted to be in the building of a football club, of an institution, of a project by July 1, before pre-season. Yeah. And the minute I knew Brighton was interested and they stayed up, I was like, yeah, I'm getting my hand stuck into that.
So when you say you came to do a job, what was your remit? Because we were obviously a football club that had been fairly newly promoted. We were trying to stabilise ourselves and find our feet in the Premier League. So as someone that had been in the Premier League for a long time, what was your conversations with the club and where did they want you to take us?
So it started with Dan Ashworth, and I remember the meeting. He was extremely impressive. Opened his laptop, showed me the whole training ground, and he just basically said that we don't need your footballing ability. He went, we need you in the building. And I kind of knew then, I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this. And I've obviously studied the squad, studied Graham as the manager, like looked exactly like how far Brighton is from London home, looked at the style of play. It was
first thing we do, isn't it?
Yeah. It was in lockdown at the time, so I was started watching their games thinking, I hope they stay up, because sometimes you just get this sixth sense, a little bit like my decision now to leave the football club. You just know, and I've always been very good at making decisions based on that feeling. And yeah, off the back of meeting Dan, then meeting Graham, I met Graham once. It was kind of all agreed. So Dan played a pivotal role really in wooing me to the club or whatever.
So when you leave a club in a Champions League and Premier League winning club as you did at Liverpool, I suppose the next thing you want to do is find somewhere with a purpose. And you talked about coming here for the project and the identity, and it's a very future-facing club. So you couldn't have just left Liverpool, I suppose, and just gone to any old Premier League club. You wanted something to be part of, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I think going back to my conversation with Jordan, he probably thought that my footballing ability, I was able to maybe play at a higher level for a better club. And yeah, I agree with him, but I've never been one to solely look at that. Brighton there was a lot of similarities with Southampton as a football club, and because I'd been at Southampton, I'd grown through the leagues. I'd already gotten my hands dirty in relegation battles, making the next step after that, and so I knew the requirements to make them steps. Coming out of a Liverpool winning machine, I had all the knowledge of what was required, and it's not rocket science. It's basics, and how you train every day, how you behave. Dan kind of mentioned to me there's a bit of a culture within the Brighton squad of, happy enough to keep this, be in the league, reaping the rewards that come with that. And because I've played lower leagues, I understand that you need bonding, that you need a couple of Sundays down the pub. Like, I don't turn my nose up at that, but kind of I can judge the balance, and maybe there was a bit too much of that when I came in. And I think one of my strong qualities is that I can help adapt to culture, but adapt to the culture as well. If that makes sense.
100%. And you're totally right. When you joined the football club, we were still in that Premier League honeymoon period of we're in the top league. When we go to the likes, or when we play the likes, I should say, of your Cities, your Man Uniteds back then, your Chelseas, it was a free hit. It was almost acceptable to lose. But I noticed we only crossed paths for a really short amount of time. But I noticed right away that wasn't acceptable to you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that necessarily it was acceptable to the group, because they would always go out and try and win.
Of course.
But obviously you were looking at the likes of your Cities and things, and you're like, it's going to be a hard day. But you had that belief. So it was installing that belief in the group that was already that they were good enough to compete, wasn't it?
That's it. And you can't change that overnight. It's by, my first season I found really difficult because I was trying to show people in training how to train every day, like not be the best player in training, but just show how you're meant to apply yourselves every single day in training. And I think there's too many people that don't understand that, how to do that. So I was trying to do that whilst show people I was like kind of good enough, maybe trying a bit too hard, having like conversations with players, like difficult conversations, like arguments around different views of behaviours, how they're training, this, that and the other. But what was really, really important is that I think I had 7-8 of the lads straight away with me, like British lads. I don't even need to mention them, and that really helped me. Like Dan Byrne was massive for me to begin with. He was like, and then he became the bad cop as well, and everyone listened and loved Dan. Whereas at the beginning, people probably thought, "Who does this think he is?" or whatever. Coming from Liverpool, and me and openly say it, me and Neil Mopai had a couple of big bust ups early on. I've got a good relationship with Neil now, and when he left, I was actually sad to see him leave, because I thought, Neil just became a different person in the end. But at the beginning, we had different views on how kind of we seen the game really, and so that was exhausting in the first season. That whilst we were in a relegation battle, we were deep in a relegation battle, and every year there's been little baby steps forward, and no one ever probably dreamt of what would happen last season under Roberto, but I think Graham deserves a lot of praise as well for how he accumulated the squad and
culture. Yeah,
culture, put people in place. I remember speaking to Graham about a couple of my frustrations, and he was like, "Speak to the players then, call a meeting." Like, I was like, "All right then, you happy with that?" Like, and he went, "Oh, of course." Like, but he was very clever at not like telling you what to do, but giving you kind of autonomy. And he's very smart at that, Graham.
It's interesting because at the age you're at, you could have just gone for the quiet life and thought, I'll come here, I'll play here for 2 or 3, 4 seasons, and I don't need to get involved in all this. None of this is my problem. I'll just do my job. But you took that on, and you took that challenge on. You've always had that in you, I guess, have you? That desire not just to float through life.
I think that's Dan as well.
Right.
Dan realising what type of character he was, because I think that's a stroke of genius.
Yeah, it was from Dan.
Yeah,
I crossed paths with Dan at England, so Dan knew I was a decent enough player. Okay, but I think the big bit was the other side that he wanted. He'd been around that and seen that, or during that time as well, I'm coming out of a winning machine of Liverpool with Jurgen, with all the top pros that are there, and I've been able to sprinkle a little bit of that to Brighton, because that's what you do naturally. You are what your experience gives you.
Yeah, we had Andrew Crofts on this podcast, and he was saying that when Graham Potter left to go to Chelsea, you were the first guy on the phone to say, right, tomorrow morning we get back at it. We need to be organised, professional. We need to train. We need to do this. We need to do that. Do you remember that? Do you remember thinking, I need to step in here a bit and help to keep things stable?
Yeah, I think when the club asked me to support Crofty and Shannon, like, it wasn't even a question. It was like, of course. And what was amazing was the lads were so it's not easy, sometimes from a player to then step up and be interim on the other side, as a coach. But the lads it was just so normal and so natural. Didn't have to try to be anything different. They were just really respectful. And yeah, we just got on like a house on fire, me and Crofty, from day one. And he's been really important for me the last 2 years, as taking over from what Bruno's role, what I used Bruno for as like a mentor. I leaned on Bruno so much, and Crofty, because, well, why wouldn't I? They've been in my position only 4 or 5 years ago, where they're coming towards the end, body's slowing down, can't do as much as what you want to do, and it's hard to tell yourself that at times. And they've been amazing, Mazza, Bruno and Crofty, and. But
I think that speaks volumes of you, because obviously your career, fact, outshone theirs. Do you know what I mean? Like the heights you got to and what you won. So a lot of people in your position wouldn't even sort of look in that direction for any guidance. But because you're humble and you're willing to listen and grow and develop, you took them on board, which speaks volumes of you, I think.
Well, what you're speaking about there, I think, is one of my super strengths. Do you know what I mean? I'm open to listen to anyone, to collaborate with anyone, learn off anyone, and I think that's that. But that comes naturally to me. I don't think, I need to do this to make him feel important, or I better do that because that's the right thing to do. It's like, no, I genuinely. Like, if they're good people, I'll connect and warm with them and listen to them, because they played the same game as me. They're in a role where they need to help players. I'm still a player. Let's try and get a relationship. And it wasn't even, you have to try. Do you know what I mean? They've been unbelievable with me. Bruno, still to this day, I speak to Bruno for advice, and Crofty. I've spoken to him a lot, Crofty, this year, especially about my decision to leave the football club. It's probably been Crofty and Roberto inside the club who I've lent on the most.
Yeah, talking to you now, it's like talking to a definite future manager and future coach. Is that the way you see your future?
I definitely will on a pitch. I said to Mazza that last week. I want to be on the grass. I've got a lot of passion for footy. Not sure as much as Roberto, but yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say it's daunting. It's scary. Like, I'm doing my badges now. I've been away with the 21s this year, and having to learn how to speak to players as a coach is different to a player. So I'm massively outside my comfort zone when I'm doing that. I was, even when I was helping Crofty out for the 2 weeks, and I was outside of my comfort zone, nervous, but I know feeling like that is good. That's growing, that's learning. And I've always been good at kind of admitting that, not saying, oh no, I'm not, I want to be the macho man, I can do that, or I'm not nervous. It's like, no, I am. So although I say, I want to be a coach, maybe a manager, it's hard. It's tough. It's life consuming. It's full on to a different level than playing.
Yeah, you don't get your family life back if you go from being a player to a manager straight away, do you?
No, not at all. So I think, I definitely in need of this summer to rest and reflect. I feel like I've jam-packed everything into the last 4 years, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been without my family, but they knew that from the word go, and I've jumped right in, and I think that's why the results have been good. You don't get anything in life without working for it. You can't take shortcuts; it just doesn't exist.
I want to go back to you refer to Liverpool as a winning machine, and I think that obviously we see the group that we've got now. We can have amazing afternoons, we can have amazing season, but this season, the difference between that mindset and that mentality of grind and results out on a Thursday in Europe and coming back in the Premier League and producing, and that is something that has eventually kind of not undone us because we were successful, but we found it difficult. Do you know what I mean? And it's given me a newfound respect for the likes of Liverpool's, where as an outsider you just expect them to go to Europe and win, and Liverpool will win that, and it's just a machine. Like you say, it's a machine, but it's really difficult to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. That's why when people say mentality, technical ability and physical ability, it's like, what's the most important? If you've got a pie chart and you divide it up, it's like, well, the mindset mentality is 75% of that. Yeah. And it's literally for exactly what you're speaking about now. You've got to turn up for them Sunday games after Thursday, playing the game in your head with your mind, or as a human being, complacency slips in, because that's what happens in human beings. It's normal to not be up for a Sunday game as much as a Thursday night when you're away in Europe and you're back late. With kids that haven't experienced it before, or even senior pros that haven't experienced it before.
The majority of the group.
So that's why this year's like, there's so much learning going on, and it's so successful, in my opinion. No relegation battle. We've learned, we've got through the groups, we've survived with the injuries. And there's a bit of perspective there. Like you've said, Mazza, there, that there's a new sign of perspective that you've got for the big boys, because, they're doing that every single year. International football. No break. It's... the thought of going to a Euros now, I just couldn't even imagine. Obviously, when you get older, the physical side probably and the mental side are the two most important. But it's nice hearing that, Mazza, because that's what. So if you've felt that, imagine the players that haven't experienced it before have felt it this year, and that's where they'll be so much better for it when it happens again, because it will. We will get to Europe again, and if I'm a betting man, I would next year expect that.
Because going into this season, there was a big onus on yourself, James Milner and Danny Welbeck as standout pros that had walked that course before. Do you know what I mean? So, but like you say, one step back can often be positive, because next time we get in, we'll hopefully have a majority of the squad that know how to ride that Thursday, Sunday.
And that's exactly what it is. You ride it. You're not going to physically be at your best on the Sunday, but then you play smart, and manage it. We drew 3 or 4 Sunday games at home this year where we played well enough to win them games.
100%.
I'm coming off the pitch thinking, speaking of Crofty, when I speak to him, it's like, Crofty, mate, we done well in that. After that, I know how difficult it is to perform well on Sundays, but we had to win that. Some Liverpool performances, they would have played half as good as that, but won.
Found a way.
And that it was to be expected, really.
Yeah, while you're on the subject of Liverpool, I must ask you about Jurgen Klopp leaving, because it feels like a seminal moment for the whole of the Premier League and the English game in a way. It feels like a loss, doesn't it? Does it feel that way to you, having played for him?
Exactly. Sometimes there's some figureheads at football clubs when they leave, and the impact kind of goes beyond anything tactically, technically, physically. The man just had an aura that just represented the city, the football club, and it's going to leave a massive hole.
Not only in Liverpool, mind. I think in the Premier League and in the country in general, he's very much, like you say, a figurehead of the league, not just Liverpool.
Exactly that. I think so. I don't think it will just be Liverpool fans, wishing him all the best or mourning him. I think you're right. It will be everyone involved in the whole Premier League. The battle that he's had with Pep over the past 6-7 years. I mean, they've kind of taken over, really.
Yeah,
the two of them, and it is sad, but I'm pretty sure he must need this rest. I mean, managing an institution like that for 9 years, God forbid how exhausted he must be.
Or dragging it back to the top.
Well, exactly. All them years without trophies, never win a Premier League, and I saw in his first ever meeting, he gave us the confidence. He knew what the recipe was. Like, I suppose a little bit how I came in here, I knew roughly what the formula was that I needed to see and feel around to start improving results as a football club. He had that when he walked into Liverpool about winning a trophy. He was like, don't worry. Like, I've done this, I know. And it wasn't even him saying that. It was just what was written on his face when he was like speaking to us. He was so confident.
Yeah, I wrote Sir Alex Ferguson's book with him, and every time I sat down with him, I was trying to work out that secret where you get somebody who drives standards like that, not once a week or once a month, every single day, every hour of every day, and inspires people to hit that level the whole time and stay at that level, and makes that non-negotiable. Either you play at that level and you do what we all need you to do, or you don't play here. Yeah, there's a lot of that about Jurgen Klopp, isn't there? And Pep Guardiola as well, and a few other managers. But Klopp has that so obviously, doesn't he? That ability to maintain that level and to show in it, but with his own input and his own inspirational qualities and his own charisma. Is that what you felt you were working for?
Them geniuses, they are what they are. So they don't know. They don't walk into work and be like, right, I need to be like this today to make sure he sees this, because that's acting.
Yeah.
Like, Jurgen is Jurgen, like Pep is Pep, Roberto's Roberto. That's what you're getting, and it's that's the genius. So there's no like teaching that.
So they're completely themselves. There's no act. Yeah.
No, they are them, and that's why whoever's replacing Jurgen has obviously got to come in, and he's been successful, but he has to be himself and trust and back himself in this football, in the way that he sees football. And it isn't going to be easy because Jurgen was Jurgen for 9 years, and people will mourn Jurgen. Like, so there will be a time, another process in place. But Jurgen is a genius because he's Jurgen, just like Pep, Roberto. There's no, that is the secret.
Your best place to answer that, really, Paul, because Adam's only seen Jurgen at Liverpool, whereas you've seen Alex not as a manager.
Yeah, well, I think you've made the connections there, Adam. It's really that it's that kind of authenticity. So it's authority, and authority only comes with success. You've got to win things to have that power over the players, for a start, haven't you? If you've got that level of success and that level of authority, the players are going to do what you ask them to do on the whole. They're not going to take you on, unless they fancy leaving. So that's a big part of it, and it is this. I think it's an ability to work people out as well.
I think personally, what Jurgen done, like, masterfully, was, for want of a better word, he united Liverpool as a football club, and when you get that local connection, that togetherness, then that can be so powerful. Like, you've seen the European nights at Liverpool, and it's like, you're not a Liverpool fan, but you're watching just to see that, and it's like you as a fan of another team were just getting swept away in Liverpool's European nights as an Englishman. they were amazing, and that for me is what Jurgen done really well. And don't get me wrong, like tactical, culture, all that, but on top of that, he made everyone feel like they were part of something special.
Yeah, and that's like we spoke about super strengths or what they excel at, and that's like Jurgen's motivation. Like, okay, Roberto tactically is different, and that's what he works on a lot. Jurgen, it's his motivation. He wants the team to be like he openly says he wants organised chaos, which is like opposite to what Roberto wants. But when you know when you know what your way of success is, of being you, there's no right or wrong in footy. Like, there's plenty of ways to win football matches, plenty of styles, but it's finding out what you are, who you are, and being that.
Yeah.
So after having Jurgen coming down here, meeting Graham and spending time with Graham, how have you found Roberto?
Very, very special.
Were you surprised when he came in? About his ability?
I hadn't heard of Roberto, and I feel terrible like admitting that, because he was at Shakhtar. It was obviously a big team. So I studied him and thought, I like the way his teams are playing. It's very evident straight away what Shakhtar it's like. They play. Coming here, I remember going into his office and having a conversation with him, and I've said this a lot. Like, one of the things I really enjoy of always doing is following my managers, like getting behind them, getting their messages across to the group, knowing how to do that. I can't sit here and tell you I know how to do that, but I've found a way over the years to do that. And straight away I was just on board with him, and he was probably pretty surprised the type of player I was. Like, I remember him saying to me straight away, he was like, "Well, you're English." I was like, yeah. He was like, we're going to enjoy working together. And listen, it would have been amazing. He always says to me, like, Pochettino's a lucky having you at 25 years old. He went, I've got you at 35.
What? So I remember you playing against you at I won't mention the ground, but we were playing against each other in the Premier League. And I can always remember, and this probably goes back to what you were saying of your difficulties in the first season with the group, of that intensity. And I can remember looking over my shoulder constantly, and you were always available. You never stopped talking, always wanting the ball, always making an angle. And I was like, this is next level stuff.
Yeah. It's when you say that, I don't even like really remember being different or a standout player.
Well, you must have been. You went to Liverpool.
Well, I know, but I always remember always having like insecurities. I remember my first year at Liverpool, I was like, I don't belong here. Like, I remember thinking, I need to somehow survive this first year at Liverpool, because I felt like I didn't belong. And I was speaking to Hinchy's dad out there today about how sometimes lads from Saints, Brighton, the nice clubs, turn up for England international duty and around all the big boys at London teams, players, and they struggle to be themselves because it can be overwhelming with the big boys there earning more money. And there was a little bit of that at Liverpool with me, coming from Southampton. I was rubbing shoulders with Stevie G in the dressing room. Like that, I struggled training with Stevie G because it was Stevie G. That, I'm honest to say, I'm not sure I belong here, and it took time for me to adjust and adapt to being around that, like day in, day out. And it was just the hard work that literally made me survive there.
Well, you did belong there. And I'm glad you mentioned England, because you were England Player of the Year in probably the hardest year to be England Player of the Year, 2016, which is a pretty rough one, wasn't it? And You are the greatest England pub quiz question in my view, because you're,
Yeah.
you're the only England player to have scored a goal for Sam Allardyce, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was Slovakia, wasn't it, away?
Yeah, it was. I actually I really enjoyed it under Big Sam. You know, for the couple of camps I was there, I remember thinking, God, Big Sam's coming in. Are we gonna be playing long ball now? And but like, how wrong was I? And I feel embarrassed to, admit that I had that thought. But he came in, he was like, why would I be playing? Like, I've got the best players in the country. Of course we're going to play. And he just made it a great environment to begin with. Wanted players to express themselves, and he just understood footy and had a real warmth about him, Big Sam. And I was, terribly upset for him that it was obviously a small tenure.
Yeah, you had a very good England career in a tough time, didn't you? That was a tough period, really.
Yeah, I've again, I had a couple of bad injuries at bad moments, but I was there when Gareth took the job, and I think the year I won Player of the Year was maybe his first year in charge, and I remember I was an important character for him in his time, because Gareth got the England job coming up from the under-21s, and I just can imagine looking back now how he must have been feeling. And he'll openly admit he would have been out of his depth. And I remember at that time speaking of conversations like, what do you want from it? Like, what do you want from us? Whatever you want from the team. Like, I'll set the press off. I remember me and Vards up front against Spain one game. I was like, no, boss, we need to be out of possession. We need to play like this. This is how it feels when we were doing. And he was like, yeah, what, like. But again, giving me ownership to make them decisions. And that's smart from a manager, I think, especially when he'd just been given the job or he was standing in at that time. And Gareth's always been great for me ever since. Yeah. Still exchange texts for every now and again now, and a lot of admiration for Gareth and how he's really united the England camp. Like, I've been part of England camps where players, you don't really want to go and there's a bit clicky. He is the reason everyone wants to go to England camps now. Gareth, that's Gareth, and that's his super strength. That's what Gareth is. He's an organizer. He's a planner. He creates this environment where people want to turn up.
Yeah,
and that's the change he made.
You've worked under, and you've described all these super strengths of certain managers you've played under, and I think from this conversation, it's plain to see that one day you probably will be a boss. What would be your super strength, or how would you want to be perceived as a manager?
How I am as a player. I don't know what the right or wrong is, but I think how I play the game naturally, that has to be. I'm doing my A licenses now, and we talk about philosophies and shapes, and I couldn't care less about shapes. Like 4-3-3, I could not care, because they're all good in certain moments, or they're all bad in certain moments. But all I know is that how I see the game, and that's when I'm on the pitch, and my passion I have, whether it's for vocally shouting at players or whether I'm ratting around players. Maybe it used to be a bit more like that when physically I could, but that, and I want to be able to, I can technically handle the ball. That is what I am as a footballer, and I think that's what I would like to see in my teams. Yeah. How the hell I'm going to get that across to players, I've not got a clue.
You've had plenty of practice, mate. You've worked with some amazing people.
Okay. But if I can take a little bit of Jurgen, the warmth and charisma of Maurizio when he turned up to Southampton, I was struggling as captain, really struggling, trying to do too much, and he settled me down straight away. Roberto's tactics and footballing knowledge, with his aura and his demands. If I can just take little bits from what I've learned and experienced, but I think that is inside of me already. So I don't need to think of a clever formula, because I've learned it. It will be in there somewhere, and naturally it will come out.
Well, you've more than learned it; you've lived it.
I've lived it. I've lived it. Yeah.
Talking of which, and finally, Adam, Brighton fans are really sad to see you go. If you read the reactions on the message boards, they kind of hoped you'd stay forever. So can you say anything about what you're going to do next and whether you might end up back here one day?
That's nice knowing that the reactions have been a bit more like that than can't wait for him to get out the door. I can definitely see myself being back, working back here in the future in some capacity. I needed to make a decision based on my family, I think, and that was, there becomes a time in your career where, I've been extremely selfish throughout my career, making decisions that are good for me and football, Adam Lallana. And I think at this stage, it just felt right that, and I spoke to you the other day, Muzzer, I need to go home. I need to be in my marital home, more often than not, 6-7 nights a week, where I'm kissing my kids goodnight every night and they're seeing me in the morning. And as much as I love football and I've loved it here, that's what it was most important. I'd like to continue playing. If not, then I suppose if I want to stay home, I'm not going to have too many other options apart from retiring. But I know that's not too far away. But I never wanted to kind of outstay my welcome here. I think, like I said to you, Muzzer, that the football club's constantly on the rise, and for a senior player, it's tough to keep asking your body to do stuff day in, day out. And Roberto's been unbelievable with managing me and giving me onus to not train this day, and I feel honoured that I've been able to work with him for that reason as well. So just feels right, and I left Liverpool in a really nice way, and that gave me so much fulfillment inside that I can go back, see people, and I want to have that here for sure. It's important.
Yeah, well, I think you can definitely look back at your 4 years with an immense proudness, because I think what you've done and what you've sort of steered the club through from, like we said, being a newly promoted Premier League team to being established, almost top 10 team, and looking towards Europe rather than the other end of the league. And I think you're a huge part of that, mate.
Cheers, Mother. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Adam. And don't hand your security pass in when you leave, because you might need it in a couple of years' time.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.